All right, moving on. We've got number 5 ranked Frankie Edgar fighting number 7 ranked Jung, the Korean Zombie, in the headlining bout of this card. And man, Jung goes out right, and he returns. Who did he return against? I don't think that Yair Rodriguez was his first fight back, was it? I think he fought somebody right before him, picked up a win. Dennis Bermudez, but that was back in 2017. Anyway, I was at the Yair Rodriguez fight. We actually, a couple friends, it took place in Denver, and it was right after, it was like a month after I moved out here, so we went to that fight, and it was amazing. A fight that I think had it gone to the scorecards and had Yair Rodriguez not landed that incredible elbow to end the fight, I think Korean Zombie would have won. And, you know, these guys have a common opponent in Yair Rodriguez because Frankie Edgar went out and mauled Yair and got a stoppage, right? So the thing is that Frankie more utilized his wrestling in that matchup, which was smart of him. But you kind of saw that Jung can stand with a guy like that. And although he got knocked out late, he won a fight that primarily took place on the feet for a majority of the fight, right? And that's not a discredit to what Yair Rodriguez accomplished. If you get knocked out and finished, you get knocked out and finished, man. That's just how it goes. Yair definitely won the fight, no doubt about it. But my point is that Jung is able to hang with an elite, explosive, long, rangy, creative guy on the feet, right? He's probably more capable in terms of like pure kickboxing. He's more capable of hanging with a guy like that than Frankie is. But this is MMA. This ain't kickboxing. And Frankie has one of the strongest wrestling games in the featherweight division. I've stated this before. The thing that makes me most nervous about this is that Frankie was probably more in the mindset of fighting Corey Sandhagen, who is a long, big bantamweight, but still young. And I said this before, like Yair Rodriguez, similar thing, right? A guy who looks like nearly unbeatable, so explosive, so creative, and so well-rounded. But Frankie is a veteran, man, and he uses his wrestling and just goes out there and gets it done. But we've seen Frankie Edgar stumble a little bit of late. He most recently lost to Max Holloway via unanimous decision when he fought for the featherweight title, knocked out by Brian Ortega. But Frankie still has it, man, and he hasn't. This is the thing about Frankie, is that his pressure and his relentlessness, they don't slow down because he has incredible cardio and incredible heart. I mean, this is a guy who, it feels like Frankie Edgar gets clipped in every single one of his fights, right? And you saw like Jung when he dropped Renato Moicano in their which was beautiful, by the way. I mean, Moicano it was early on in the fight, and Moicano just didn't snap his jab back fast enough. He kind of like threw out a little bit of a lazy jab and was starting to come with the right, and Korean Zombie just slipped off and boom, threw a big overhand right and fucking dropped him. And here's something that you're going to have to consider too, even if Frankie does take this fight to the ground. Jung is very, very good at grappling. Good jiu-jitsu. He's hit one of the only twisters in UFC history. You see him rolling with some of like the Gracies and stuff sometimes, man. He's got very good jiu-jitsu. So if this fight goes to the ground, he might have what it takes to get back up. That's why the key for this fight, if this fight just stays on the feet, it's going to lie in, the advantage is going to lie in the hands of the Korean Zombie. I think his hands are just a little bit sharper. Not that Frankie Edgar doesn't have great hands, but I think as the fight wears on, if Frankie can't get this to the ground and mix things up, it's going to be a long night for Frankie. But here's the thing, is even if Frankie takes this to the ground, the Korean Zombie is going to be able to get back up, I think. So for Frankie, it's going to be important for him to not get discouraged when that happens and to continue mixing in and hunting the takedowns. And you'll see this happen a lot of the times in fights. A lot of the times, the first takedown, you can't keep the guy down. The second takedown, you can't keep the guy down. Maybe even the third, fourth, in a long fight like this, maybe even the third and fourth, you can't keep him down. But as you start training together, you're wrestling more and more. That's going to be key in this too, is like chain wrestling for Frankie. Because if the Korean Zombie does get taken down, he's not going to get taken down the same way the next time. So Frankie's going to have to chain wrestle and string things together in order to land the takedowns. But I think that's going to be the key to this fight. If the Korean Zombie is able to fend off the takedowns, I think he'll obviously be able to win this fight. But Frankie has to land multiple takedowns, and he has to be relentless about them, and then that'll start opening up his boxing and allow him to land strikes and mix everything together well. For the Korean Zombie, it's going to be about defending those takedowns and, getting into positions where Frankie can't chain wrestle you, keeping your back off the cage, stuff like that. This is a tough fucking fight to pick, man. Um, I actually, I think I'm going to go with Frankie Edgar in this one, man. I'm a little bit biased. Frankie Edgar is like my first favorite fighter, but I also just think that he has the gas tank to keep, like, Jung. He'll kind of like stand in front of you more, whereas like the footwork and stuff for Frankie, I think is always on point. He moves a lot, and he's got Mark Henry as a boxing coach, so it's not like Frankie can't box. It's just I don't think he'll have an advantage. Like, I just don't think he has an advantage on the feet. You know, as he needs to mix in his wrestling for his boxing to be at its best, but I see Frankie, you know, acknowledging the fact that he's struggled to get the fights to the ground most recently, and I think that you'll see him hunt for those takedowns a little more. And like I said, he has the cardio where I don't think if he lands a takedown and Korean Zombie gets back up that he'll give up on it. He has like a high fight IQ, man. He's going to be going after things, and I think that as the fight wears on, Frankie will just start landing more and more takedowns. And then he'll be able to secure position. You might see Korean Zombie get up a lot, but I just think that Frankie will keep it on him. Takedowns open up the boxing opens up the takedowns, and that's what will come together for Frankie. He does have to be. This is by no means. This is a coin flip fight for me, man. The Korean Zombie is extremely dangerous, and like I said, he does have good grappling. He does work well in the clinch. He does work well in the striking department. I mean, we got 2 seasoned veterans going at it here. I'm just going to go with Frankie on this one. I like the underdog, man. I think that he's going to get back to being Frankie Edgar in this fight, you know? Probably a decision if Frankie pulls it off. I think the Korean Zombie's fucking tough, and he'll be able to stay defensive in a lot of things. And you'll just see Frankie from the top working from guard, you know what I mean, a lot of the time if he does get the takedowns.